All right guys, today I got an exciting video for you. I've been wanting to do this comparison for a few years now, and I finally have the opportunity. We're gonna compare the all-new Ford Bronco Raptor to the 392 Wrangler Rubicon. Both of these things are best in class, topped out, engine options, suspension, overall technology, and we're gonna see how these things compare, how they contrast, and really who the target audience is for each of these, and maybe which one you'd want or not want. But I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm gonna try to break this up into 2 videos because there's gonna be so much to talk about. I don't wanna bore you guys with a 50-minute long video. So first, what we're gonna do is we're gonna start out and do interior, exterior overview, kind of talk about technology, powertrains, just size, physical differences, things of that nature. And then we'll do a drive ride review comparison as well that also kind of goes over, which is funny enough, we'll include a fuel mileage loop in this. So let's do this. So does it get any better than this? You got Ford with the all-new Bronco Raptor versus the tried and true Jeep Wrangler Rubicon Unlimited with the maxed out 392 powertrain. Both of these are the highest trim level options in not only their class, but of their actual product line. So you can get the Bronco all the way in Bronco Sport to a standard Bronco 2-door, 4-door. You can get, I think there's like 8 or 10 different configurations. And lastly, your Bronco Raptor. The same thing in the Wrangler. You can get this in a 2-door, you can get it in a 4-door. You can get your sport models, Saharas, and then make a few different variants of the Rubicon, and then this is the highest package. What's cool about this is, even though these are competitors, they're actually really not. They're really completely different in so many different ways. Yes, they're both off-road capable vehicles, but what they bring is completely different and so cool that you can be different yet the same. At first, when you look at these things, you say, well, this is a 4-door SUV with big off-road tires and a removable top. Well, that's the same thing the Wrangler is. Isn't that the exact same thing? Big tires, removable doors, removable top, hard top, soft top. How's the difference? Well, that's what we're gonna do in this video. We're gonna go over what these differences are. First, I'm gonna start with the Rubicon. This is a 2024 Jeep Wrangler Rubicon, but this is the 392 option. If you're not familiar with the 392, Jeep decided to go all out, and they provided an option where you can get the 6.4 liter or 392 V8, but this is a high horsepower V8 in a Jeep Wrangler. People have been wanting something like this for a long time. Jeep finally said, all right, let's do it. But more so than that, just putting a big V8 in a Rubicon, it still kept the Rubicon features of front selectable locker, rear selectable locker, front disconnect in the sway bar, off-road suspension, a little bit lifted up, but then they put the 35-inch wheels on it. They put the bead locks, and then they added a lot of other features like the specific interior to this. Another cool thing about this thing has a really pretty awesome exhaust system on it. If you notice, you got 2 tips here and you got 2 exhaust tips there. Now, if we go over here, you're gonna see this thing right here. See that right there? That's an actuator for the exhaust, which allows you to have custom exhaust modes where you can make this thing quiet, you can make it super loud. Now let's see if Ford has something like that. So now this is the exhaust system, and you notice there's no muffler back here. There's actually quite a bit of space and you know, you don't have a spare underneath here obviously, but there's no muffler. All you see is an exhaust tip with 2 outlets. The muffler is actually sandwiched up front. So there is the muffler on the Bronco. And if you notice right in the middle there with a little screen on it, that's also an actuator. And that actuator actually allows different exhaust modes where you can have a quiet mode, loud mode, off-road mode. So Ford actually took the same approach, but just did it with a different engine. And while we're talking about engines, let's check those out. You don't have a hood release in the Wrangler because you got these super cool old school clasps on the side. That's something they've had for a long time, and I still think that's super neat. 2 completely different animals on so many fronts. Number one, the first thing you notice when you open the hood, you got a hood strut. Secondly, when I open up the hood, is I noticed how heavy this hood was. And it's because this thing has the hydro guide intake for the engine. So what's kind of cool about this is this thing sucks in air from the top. But what's neat about it is they made it where if you were off-road Fording, this thing has this pretty darn neat like system here, like almost like a check valve, where like the water can rush out the back of the intake over the side of the engine, where then your fresh air that comes through actually dumps right into your intake. So, I mean, they really did put a lot of thought into water extraction if you were off-road. I think that's darn neat. But this is the heart and soul of this monster, the 392. I like this kind of like carbon fiber looking print over the top of the valve covers. What always amazes me when I think of a 392, this is such a large engine, but being this is an old school pushrod V8, it actually fits in here okay. Yes, is it tight for doing some service work? Yes, to a degree, but if you notice, a lot of V6s actually take up as much room when you start looking at dual overhead cam technology and turbos. It's amazing they can actually squeeze a V8 under the hood of this thing. I like that the alternator is up top here. That's pretty cool. Just looking at the wiring and just kind of how stuff is set up, you can tell that they really went after an off-road approach. There's your coolant for your reservoir. Here's your washer fluid. Then you got your brake booster. Getting into your exhaust would be a little bit tough, but they really focused on, here's another thing right here. I don't know if this is for wind or sound, but they're trying to deflect some water away from this area. All right, now let's take a look at the Bronco Raptor. First thing you notice, this doesn't have a hood scoop. It has hood extraction, so you can see heat can kind of come through here and out at the top. And I like kind of how it says the Ford Performance badge here. The intake setup is completely different though. Whereas the Rubicon 392 come from the hood, this sucks from the front. So I'd have to believe in a way that this probably doesn't have as great of water fording capability, just because this is a little bit lower. But there's a caveat to that I will go to in a little bit that might not be a concern. Now when we look at this powertrain, actually in all fairness, there is more room up front to work, but you notice there's a lot more going on with your piping for each side of the turbo. You don't have a real nice engine cover on it like you do with the 392. Battery's in a little different location. You've got your fuse junctions over here, but generally speaking, they both seem to fit in pretty decently. Ford did take a little bit different approach on the brake system. This is a hydro boost braking, whereas the other one is a vacuum boost actuated. I do like that the Ford hood does not have a prop to hold up, but not a big deal. So now when we talk about powertrains, this is around 485 horsepower, naturally aspirated, old school, simple V8. I believe this is 418 or 420 horsepower. We have a 6.4 liter V8. This is a 3-liter twin turbo. So let's talk about these power differences. When we look at both of these dyno graphs, on the left-hand side, we've got the 3-liter twin turbo, and on the right side, we've got the 392. If you notice the shape of the torque curve, you see your peak torque on the 3-liter at 3,000 RPMs, at 440 foot-pounds or pound-feet of torque, and 470 pound-feet of torque at 4,300 RPMs for the 392. This is very characteristic of both of these style engines. Typically, boosted engines make higher torque quicker and then stay flat, whereas you see more of a natural aspirated engine, it's going to build at a higher RPM. Both these engines actually are within 10% of each other for peak torque. They just do it a little bit differently. Now, hood-wise, this gets you this extraction style hood that gets you the heat away from the engine, whereas the 392 doesn't have a heat extraction. It's allowing air to go inside. When we compare front ends, physically, the Bronco Raptor is substantially larger. It's much wider. If we look at the width of this, it's substantially wider. The wheels go wider. Now granted, I do have aftermarket wheels on this, but even outside of that, I think there's 8 to 10 inches more in width in the Bronco Raptor versus the Wrangler Rubicon 392. Both of these actually have a really nice skid plate up front, and actually both have LEDs for your fog lights. The Bronco Raptor actually comes with 2 sets. So you've got one tied to your regular headlight controls and then one on an aux switch. And then if we go to the headlights, you have your signature lighting for the Bronco Raptor. It's the amber lenses. And you have, actually, I just noticed this actually has reflector LEDs, not projector. You have a front facing camera. You have the signature lights actually across the grille that Raptor has. You have your front camera with the windshield wiper washer. The front bumper on the Rubicon is actually, call it a modular construction. So if you're in the rock crawling and whatnot, this whole corner is made, you can pull off, and then you just have this bar across and this corner for clearance off-road. And now if we look at the approach angles, you can kind of see this skid plate comes from the front here all the way down into underneath your front differential. And this is where we start getting into some of the differences between the two. Now we go to the Wrangler front end. This actually looks like this has a projector LED in the middle, which is really cool. I like that. And I like that little red light line down below. Looks really nice. This also has front-facing camera with the washer fluid for it, but this has a huge upgrade. This has the Warn winch from the factory, which is phenomenal. If you're off-roading, it's so professionally tucked in there. I just really like that. That gives you a lot more off-road capability for sure. They both have recovery points in the front end. Bronco has recovery points there. We look at the bumper construction. Jeep also has the corners that come off. So if you're in a rocky environment and you want extra clearance for approaching things, you have that. Now if we look at the skid plates, this is where we start seeing some differences. You still have a really nice heavy duty skid plate here, no question about it. But this is where we look at the front suspension and axles. This has a solid front axle. And this is where we get into some of the big differences. A solid front axle, and if you notice, this even has CV boots, like you're gonna see the Bronco Raptor, these little rubber bellows right there, the axle joints. So this is a solid front axle, whereas the Bronco Raptor is an independent front suspension. So you have a differential in the middle, which is over here, and then it goes to individual half shafts. You can kind of see just some of the differences, the lower control arms. Now talking about front axles, Bronco Raptor has 470 gear axle ratios. This has 456 gear axle ratios. This has a selectable locker in the front and the rear. Bronco Raptor has a selectable locker in the front and rear. This has a front sway bar disconnect. So in extreme articulation, off-road, rock crawling environment where you need full flex of suspension, you can disconnect the axle where you get your sway bar disconnect. Bronco Raptor also has a sway bar disconnect, but this is where you're going to see a big improvement for articulation off-road. The Rubicon, if you're in a rock crawling environment, this is going to give you much more capability of full suspension articulation versus the Bronco Raptor. So now let's talk about tires here. So if we go to the tires on the Rubicon, we will notice this is a BF Goodrich KO2 tire, and this is a 315/70/17. This is also a beadlock construction rim, or I should say faux beadlock. So this actually is a fake beadlock, but you can get an accessory to turn this into a real beadlock. Very cool. Ford actually has been doing that for a while too. The BFG KO2 is a really great all-around, all-terrain tire. We go to the Ford Bronco Raptor, and it's the exact same tire. It's a BFG KO2. The difference is, now I've already changed out the rims, so these are aftermarket, but it did come with the factory faux beadlock design, just like the Wrangler Rubicon. But this is a 37-inch tire, where this is a 35-inch tire. And for comparison, I brought my measuring tape here because I wanted to show people 35-inch tire, what is it actually in real life? Well, there's real life, about 34 inches. Now let's do the exact same thing on the Bronco Raptor. This is a 37-inch tire. What is the tire in real life? About 35.5 inches. So this is about 1.5 inches taller tire. Even though this is a 37-inch tire, it measures 35.5. And even though this is a 35, it measures basically about 34. So you get approximately 1 inch, 1.5 inch difference in height. And where you really see the big difference is on those rear tires. Might be hard to see in this, but you can really see it's a much taller tire with the Bronco Raptor here. Now, as we go down the sides of the vehicle, here's where we're going to see some different styling cues. Since the Bronco Raptor is actually a wider vehicle than the standard Bronco, they have to put these huge fender flares on it. And also, they've even put different fenders on the front and rear. This is actually much wider, it kicks out. Whereas the Wrangler is actually technically not really any wider. The Rubicon is not any wider than a standard Wrangler. It's just a tiny amount. It's not 8 inches or 10 inches like the Bronco Raptor. So they can actually run the standard fender flares, which is, as you can see, a totally different construction. Body colored. Now you can get body colored in 2024 as an option with the Bronco Raptor, but they were only black before. And actually, it's funny, when the Rubicon came out, it only came, and that was signature as being black as well. As we go down the side, another thing I think it's kind of interesting. Both of these have removable doors, but how they go about it is completely different. And before I go into that, another difference, check out the mirrors. So Ford puts their mirrors up on the body here. Wrangler, Jeep actually puts their mirrors on the door. And you got your, notice you got your door hinges right there, whereas the Ford does not have the door hinges. They do this for different purposes. The reason Jeep likes to do this is easy to take off the door. The doors, you just unscrew this screw here. disconnect your wiring inside and you can pop it off from the inside. Ford took a different approach. They wanted to go a little bit more traditional body lines. We don't have the hinges out there. And they decided to put the mirror up there because if you do remove the doors, you still have mirrors on the vehicle. Whereas the Jeep, you have to put on an auxiliary mirror that you can, I think that bolts right on the side, or you can get something to suction off the side. So you do that. And then Ford actually, how they do the door removal is you do a similar bolt removing from the inside, and they got like a little door handle here. You just pull and the whole thing comes off. With Jeep, pretty simple. Just disconnect those 2 screws, disconnect the wire here, disconnect your hinge here, and it's off. Now another thing, while we're going down the sides of this, look at our steps here. No steps here. But what's the same? This is a rock rail. This is a rock rail. If you're off-roading in a rocky environment, Ford made it where you could get a bolt-on accessory, but it comes standard with this step. You can use or not use. But if you're in a rocky area and you want to take those off, they bolt off really easily. So then you got more ground clearance for off-road. Another big difference here, exterior-wise, check out that door, check out that door. Do you notice anything missing right off the bat? Well, the door frame. The Bronco doesn't have a frame around the door where the Wrangler does. Pros and cons. What I've been told is why Ford did this was when you have the top off or the windows down, they like the idea of a half door look without actually having to change the doors. Whereas Wrangler kind of went more the traditional door route, where if you do want to do a half door, or if you do put your window down, you do still see the door frame, or if you take the top off, you still see the door frame. Personally, I like the look of the half door style for when the top is off. It's kind of got a really sleek look, but I see benefits to this too, because I feel like this is probably stronger in a lot of ways. I can't say for accident or any side collision, I have no idea. And I also wonder too, for breaking into a vehicle, I gotta believe it'd be a lot easier to break into a vehicle up here versus, you know, this standard door construction here. Now we go down the side. This is where we start seeing more and more differences. Look at the height difference on the Bronco Raptor versus the Wrangler. A lot higher. Another thing we notice, check out this like gutter system that kind of goes down the side. I guess this is for like water to kind of run down, so that I think it's just kind of the construction of how they went about water mitigation across the roof. Whereas Ford does not have the gutter design. They kind of taper it over, and I assume they just assume that kind of works there. Now, one thing I really think is cool about the Wrangler, you can keep the top on and just remove these side panels. This is a super cool feature where, like I said, you can remove that, whereas you cannot remove the side panels separate with the Bronco. This whole piece comes off together. Now, from the rear, you can tell lots of differences here. Fender flare design looks completely different. Taillights, a lot different. All LED surrounding. You got your blind spot indicator. Same thing here as well. Backup, reverse, LED. If we go rear bumper construction, steel construction, sensors. Got, I think this is a class 3 or class 4 hitch. Got a really nice reinforced hinge system for a spare tire. I like that. And looking at this, it looks like there's enough clearance. Gosh, it looks like you could probably get a 37 on there, around that. Now let's look at the Bronco. Well, the Bronco already has a 37, so that's kind of cool. Plenty of clearance options, and honestly, looking at it, it looks like you might even be able to get a 39 on the back. Rear gate opening. Now, just to kind of show you some size, I got my golf clubs in here. There's your rear hatch opening. There's a lot of accessories you can kind of bolt onto these things. There's accessories for this, and it kind of talks about accessory ready. You can kind of see some of this cargo area. This is kind of cool. They put this extra bracing on the top of the roll sport cage. I'm told it has something to do with giving it a little bit more stiffer handling. I don't know. I've never really pushed it enough to say in that regard. To remove this top is pretty slick. You remove your wire harness here and your hose for your rear windshield washer fluid, and they actually disconnect there and connect to this little thing so it's out of the way. And then you've got, I think, like 8 bolts or so. 4 or 5 on this side, 4 or 5 on that side, 2 on the top, and the whole thing comes off. I've done it before. It's a one-person job. As long as you got enough height, you can take it off by yourself. Storage is pretty decent. You can see I got a set of golf clubs in here pretty easily. All right, now let's open up the swing gate on the Wrangler. Very similar design. This says trail rated or trail ready. So they're kind of allowing you to put accessories there as well. I think this is super cool. I really dig this, and I like how they make it specific that it says Rubicon 392 JL, made in the USA, built in Toledo. That's cool. It's stuff like this I really dig that Jeep does. Swing gate opens very similar. Now this is full with a lot of stuff, but I do want to show you a few things. This is where you disconnect the harness for the rear windshield wiper lights as well as the windshield washer fluid. And you have similar bolt construction. You have a little bit of a cross brace built into the top, decorative, nice looking. You can see that it's got some really nice sound cladding around the top, which is nice. Very similar, and comes off similar as well. Now I have not taken off the hardtop on a JL, but when I had my JK Wrangler, I did take the hardtop off with a friend, and it wasn't that hard to remove. There is a version where these side panels come off. It's not this one. This is all molded together, just like the Bronco Raptor. So this would all come off as one piece, but I believe it's the one where it's like the Sunrider, where it all goes back just like a car with a convertible top. The side windows come off. That's a cool feature this one doesn't have, but it is super cool. We look at the back area here of the Bronco Raptor. You got the signature lights above. Very similar rear gate construction as far as being beefed up enough to hold a bigger spare tire. Still a steel construction in the rear. You got a 7-pin and a 4-pin with, I think, a class 3, class 4 hitch. And you've got some recovery hooks there as well. You can see your LED lights. You can see your recovery hook down there, class 3, or your 4-pin and your 7-pin. And then you have your really nice spare, obviously matching spare with the bead locks with your backup camera. I like that. All right, now let's check out some of the interior differences. We opened the door of the Bronco Raptor. Pretty basic. You're gonna see similar trends in a lot of ways here. They make the Raptor interior 2 versions for this model year. For 2024, it's actually different. It's actually a little bit nicer interior than this one, where it's actually a nicer leather surface, a little more suede in the middle, and power seats. Mine is actually the manual seat version, which was an option. It is no longer. But you can kind of see the interior. You've got your door handles. You've got a little bit of storage in the side. Got this cool little Bronco grab handle there, which is nice. But you can kind of see Ford performance. Here's one of the things I really like about this one. This has the rubber floor with the removable little plug for if you get water, sand, dirt in here. It says Raptor, very cool. Decent little styling in the interior. I did add these accessories for these loops. I'll put a link down below if you have a Bronco and are interested in this. Now let's jump in. Here's the startup sequence. Notice the sound of that V6. Pretty decent display, nothing too crazy here. Decent infotainment system. This view here specifically called the performance view. I like that. You can toggle through the different menus and just kind of decide what type of gauges you want to show. I'm going to show you here. These are what's called GOAT modes, which gives you drive modes. And I'm going to show you what these different drive modes look like. So right now we're in normal mode. Let's go to off-road mode and see what this looks like. It's going to automatically shift this thing into 4 high, and it's turning off some of the different settings. You can see the rear axle lock is engaged. You see the little icon here. See some of the different settings on the dash. We'll put it in performance view. I'm curious to see if it changes through the different. Nope, it does not. It's just letting you know off-road use only. Okay, now we're going to go now to Baja mode, which is a big reason why to get a Bronco Raptor. You're going to notice the front-facing cam comes on where the guidelines move, which is kind of cool. And it's still in 4 high. When these different drive modes are engaging, it's actually also changing your suspension, steering, and exhaust. It's changing all these different settings for each of these drive modes. Let's go to rock crawl. This is going to probably try to put it in 4 low, which we're not going to do right now. Put it neutral. It's going to try to do 4 low. It's blinking to let me know it's trying. Screen's still on. Okay, we went through those. We're going to go back to now sport mode. Sport mode, I'm going to see if it's going to put us in 4 auto. Nope, it puts it back to 2 high. The screen goes off there. It changes the shifting, kind of makes it more sporty, a little less boost lag in the turbos. This has a tow haul mode, which is kind of nice. Yeah, it's kind of funny. Look at the trailer. It's like a little like off-road looking trailer that puts behind the icon. That's kind of neat. Lastly, slippery mode, which is probably going to put it in 4 auto. Yep, there we go. 4 autos engaged. And then That's it. This is just a kind of look. You got your HVAC controls here, radio, you got your cameras. Let's see, we got front facing camera, front 180, 360. That's just a different view. Resolution looks pretty decent there. Now, this is some of your different options. This is your sway bar disconnect, front axle locker, rear axle locker. This is trail turn assist. This is traction control, and then obviously your hazards. We get on the top of the dash. This is pretty cool. This is actually a factory GoPro mount. That's kind of neat. So if you want to put a GoPro facing inside or outside, you got it. A little bit of area to like put different stuff. You've got your aux switches here for just different off-road lights and accessories. Here's your sun visor with some lighting on both sides. We've got a standard shifter here, which is really nice. Got a little bit of storage here. Heated seats in this model. They do not offer cooled seats. I wish they did, but they don't. Now we look at the steering wheel, and the steering wheel is, in my opinion, a really great steering wheel for the Bronco Raptor. The size, the girth around this area feels really nice. I like the red stitching. I like how it says Raptor. The controls are also pretty decent. It's got this got adaptive cruise, lane assist, and check that out. I love the paddle shifters. That's really awesome and super useful off-road and on-road. It's a lot of fun as well. Radio controls, you got some of the sync controls, and what's cool about the Bronco Raptor, and I believe the 392 is going to do the same thing, is this button right here. This has got 4 different exhaust modes. We're going to start with quiet, super quiet. Now we're going to go normal, a little louder, sport mode. You can hear it's a little louder. Lastly is off-road Baja, which is going to tell you off-road use only, because technically I think it's too loud, and Ford does this just to make sure you're not getting yourself in trouble with the police, I guess. I don't know. I don't think it's that loud. You can hear it's definitely more throaty. Just some of the neat little Easter eggs. So some of the things I think Bronco did a really good job is number one, they've seen what Jeep has done with Easter eggs throughout the years, and they've nailed it. They've just done such cool stuff. Just little things like this Ford Performance badge. You put the rivets in there, just kind of holds on. I think that's super cool. There's little things like over here. There's like this little scenery right here, this mountain scene with some GPS coordinates. You see little things like this tiny American flag right here. I like that. You got your GoPro mount up there. And you just start looking around and you'll see lots of these nice little cool little trinkets and stuff, which is cool. Now we go to glove box storage. Very similar. One cool thing with the Bronco Raptor is you get this like toolkit, and I think the 392 or the Rubicon Wrangler does the same thing as well. But this is for removing the top, removing the doors, and just some general tools. I thought that's kind of cool. Your HVAC controls. Luckily, the air conditioning works really well in here, because when the top is off, that heat comes down and blasts on these seats. So what I'll do normally is put the HVAC controls right down just on the seats to kind of cool it down, which is nice. You have your window controls here in the middle. What I like is you've got auto down for front row, auto down for second row, and best of all, auto up for both front and second row. So you can do all 4 windows at once. I really like that. And as you can see, just a little bit more storage in that side door as well. Now, question a lot of people want to know, how do you remove the tops on these things? So with the Bronco Raptor on the hard top, and first I want to show you, look at the sound deadening material. It's like a thick velvet. And on the drive review, we'll talk about the differences. I've got my decibel meter, and we'll talk on the highway and see if there's a big noticeable difference in ride noise or anything like that. How to remove this top? Well, it's pretty simple. Disconnect this right here, and here, and boom. One person, one hand right now. I'm removing the top, guys. It's that simple. It's not hard at all. And to go back on, just as simple. Put this bad boy on like that. And I'm doing all this one-handed. There we go. You would do the exact same thing for the passenger side. Let's go to the second row now. I'm going to show you second row room and the doors. Door construction, very similar. Lots of hard surfaces. You're going to see this a trend in these vehicles. You got a little storage here. I like this little bit of molly here on the back seat, which is kind of cool. A little bit of storage there. Nice rubber floors with your rubber mats. And now this is your second row construction. I got the car seats in, lots of room, no problem there. A little bit of a recline in the second row. If we look at our controls in the second row, we've got our window controls here. We've got a USB-C and a 110 outlet. But if we go to the roof, this is all one piece right here. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clasps, and this whole thing comes off. You can still do it with one person, just got to be careful. And while we're talking about differences in vehicle, let's talk about the biggest difference in this vehicle. It's the suspension architecture. This being a solid front axle, this being an independent front axle, gives it two completely different technologies, but also made for completely different things. I look at the Bronco Raptor as made more primarily for high-speed off-road two-tracking. You're going to get a little better ride comfort by being independent suspension in the front. You've got considerably more travel in the suspension. I'm going to confirm, I want to say this is 14 in the front, 13 in the front, 14 in the rear. I want to say this is like 6-8 inches. I'm going to confirm. I'll put a link, I'll put a note down below. But this is technically a long travel suspension from the factory, where this is more of a standard travel suspension. That's just the first start of it. Now we look at these shocks and springs. We got a coil spring right here. You got your jounce bumper in the middle. This is not an adjustable shock, and it is a smaller diameter. Now let's compare that to the Bronco Raptor. So this is where we start seeing a big difference. It's coil over shock construction. You notice this thing right here? That little thing that sticks out of the bottom of the shock body is a solenoid. This is an adjustable suspension on the fly, which gives you different dampening. You can change this based on the different conditions. You can stiffen it up, soften it up, put it in a medium setting. There's like, I think 3 or 4 different settings. Plus another thing that's cool is when you're off-road or on-road, it's constantly monitoring through this little arm right here. If you notice, that is a ride height sensor. It's looking to see if you're jumping this thing, and it notices all 4 ride height sensors are off the ground. It sends a signal to the shocks to stiffen up the dampening in the shocks, so it increases the firmness so you don't bottom out the suspension. Whereas this is a more traditional suspension, it doesn't have ride height sensors or shocks that adjust with different off-road conditions. It's just very simple. Pros and cons. The pro to this is substantially cheaper if you ever have to replace, but you're not going to have the adjustability. You're not going to go bombing and jumping this thing with the same off-road ease and comfort as you can for this. This vehicle, being long travel suspension, being the independent suspension, being the adjustable Fox Live, this is also a 3.1 diameter shock, and I believe this is 2 inch or 1.5 inch. I'll have to confirm. Totally different uses. This is made for high speed, more desert. This is made more for rock crawling, slow speed maneuverability. But also, how do they compare in the road because of those differences? All right, now let's check out the interior of the Rubicon. Looking at the side of the doors, very similar. Your mirror controls are on the door, which makes sense because if you take your doors off, you don't need to adjust the mirrors because the mirrors are on the door. You have the same kind of door construction there, handles, soft touch here. A little softer here, I actually like that. And you got the same kind of storage on the side. Now this has the power seats, which look really nice. Good lumbar support, looks really sweet. I love how it says the Rubicon 392. Very, very cool. You got your grab handle right here. It's your lighting controls. Here's your cool Easter eggs where Jeep just does such neat stuff. I love that. Now let's get inside of this and compare the startup sequence. Holy crap. Do you notice how awesome this thing sounds? It's the first thing you notice, at least for me, is how amazing this thing sounds. It's truly hard to explain how good this thing can sound. Okay, gauges, much different. More analog, a little bit of digital in the middle. A really nice display right here. I like this. This is more sideways, not as thick, but it still looks really nice, really premium. You got a little bit of storage up top here, speaker in the middle. A lot of nice speakers in here, you can tell. You got your, actually it looks like LED lighting, which is nice. And really this actually, I think the material feels a little bit nicer on this. You got your home link for your garage door openers. And when we look in as far as how does this roof panel remove, we see the same sort of sound deadening material. Just curious, it's interesting. It doesn't go all the way over this and you can kind of see the white material instead of like the all black top. But as you can see, very similar in the aspect of, what, 4 clasps? There we go. See how easy this thing is. Yep, oh yeah, one-handed operation, no problem. I don't want to drop it, but yep, you can do one-handed operation. I like that. So they both make these things super easy to remove that. I like that. Really nice rear view mirror. I noticed this right off the bat. It's self-dimming though, looks nice. Let's look at some of the different controls here. I could tell right away This screen looks really good. Forward-facing camera, very nice. I like that. A lot of different app options here. Home screen. HVAC controls look good. Heated seat, heated steering wheel, very nice, very similar to the Bronco Raptor. HVAC controls, I think this has, yep, dual climate control like the Bronco Raptor. I like that. Nice glove box. Nice storage in the middle. Very similar in that regard. I like that. Similar cup holder construction. Yeah, we got our transfer case. So one thing I noticed right here, you cannot put this in two-wheel drive. It's either 4 auto, 4 high, neutral, or 4 low. That's interesting. I was not aware of that. Here is your front and rear locker. You can see the options here. You got this off-road plus mode, your sway bar disconnect. You still got aux switches. I like that. One difference I noticed right away is your window controls are here. Let's see if they're, yep, they're auto down. I like that. Not auto up though, but auto down. Very nice. Curious if it's auto second row down. Nope, not auto second row or not auto second up. That's kind of cool. You can turn off your controls for the rear and it's like this super like analog dial. That's funny. I like that actually. Just makes it seem like hardcore. All right, so I want to look at my steering wheel and see some of the different features. So I see your different menu controls. I like this thing has paddle shifters, a little smaller, but they're still the same idea. That's super cool. You've got adaptive cruise here. I don't think this has lane keeping, but it does have adaptive cruise. I like that. Now what I want to see is there a drive mode button in this thing? I don't see that, a drive mode option. Oh, check this out. All right, here's your exhaust button. We have performance. Oh, big difference, guys. Listen to this. Wow. Okay, still sounds good, just quieter. Oh, huge difference. All right, now I'm gonna put this outside and we're gonna go do that same thing. All right, let's go do that exact same thing now with the Bronco Raptor. I think we're gonna have a little different result here. As you could tell, there's a huge difference there. All right, let's go to the second row now. Now we got some stuff in here, so I won't be able to do a whole lot with this one, but I'll get another Wrangler just to kind of compare some of the different options. But door side seems nice. Got the storage in the second row. No molly construction, but I like how this all goes flow if you want it flat, if you want to put stuff in the back. Nice speakers above with some nice lighting. Okay, we're actually going to use another Wrangler for the second row because there's so much junk in the back of the other Wrangler. We got the same storage in the bottom of the doors as well in the back of the row of the first row. Got a little holder. I don't know if you want to put like a little trash bag or something. You can kind of see your HVAC controls here. Your windows and these USB A and C. Oh, that's cool. 110 volt. I like this little tray, little storage there. That's nice. These floor mats are awesome. So I really like these all-weather floor mats. They feel super premium. As far as second row leg room and everything, it looks pretty similar, maybe an inch or two shorter than the Bronco, but it's got a nice little cup holder here. Very nice. And this one also has a little recline feature as well as the Bronco Raptor. So I do like that. So you cannot remove on the Wrangler the second row for the Rubicon as its own separate panel. So with the Bronco, you could remove front and middle and rear. So if you want to keep this back section on, you want kids to second row to enjoy it, you have that option to remove the top with the Bronco Raptor. All right, let's go over the window stickers now with the Rubicon. Okay, this is a 2024 Rubicon 392. This is the Hydro Blue Pearl exterior coat with the 6.4 liter Hemi with the 8 HP transmission. Very nice. It shows it's got the 35-inch tires. This has got the heavy duty 2.72 Select Track transfer case, heavy duty Dana front axle with the Dana M220 wide full floating rear axle. That's sick. That's an awesome upgrade for 2024. 456 axle ratios, power seats, Hydro Blue, obviously, dual top options. This has the hard top and soft top. Very, very cool. It's got the floor mats. It's got the Mopar satin grille, Warn winch, $2,000 option for a grand total of $99,000. Combined fuel economy, 14 miles per gallon, 13 city, 16 highway. Now let's go over the window sticker on the Bronco Raptor. You can see this is a 3-liter EcoBoost with a 10-speed trans in Oxford white. This is equipped as a 373A package, which is kind of like a mid-level package, but still gets you some nice options. This has got the hard gray molded in color roof with the front row top panel storage, sound deadening headliner, the standard 7-speaker system with the keyless entry pad, upgraded code orange seats with a assistant kit off-road package. Let's check out the fuel economy now. Not great. 15 combined, 15 city, 16 highway, only 1 mile per gallon different than the 392. Lastly, we look at the MSRP, $89,190. What's interesting is this is almost $10,000 less MSRP, but with some of the deals right now on the Broncos, you could potentially get another $8,000 to $10,000 under MSRP, which would make a difference of almost $18,000 to $20,000 less than the 392. Okay, this one model here actually has carpet, which is standard on most of the 24 Bronco Raptors. But what's nice is I think you can pull this stuff out pretty easily in case it does get dirty. And I believe this little plug comes out right here where you can drain the water, which is nice. I really like the controls. I think the trans controls and transfer case is super cool. I like that. The seats feel really nice. That's great. I like how the doors come off. I love this, man. This 392 is sick. What a great sounding setup and great looking setup. Now you don't have the rugged transfer case selector option in the Bronco Raptor, which is kind of a bummer, honestly. I do like that. I like the shifter in the Wrangler a little bit more, but this does all the same things. You got 2 high, 4 auto, 4 low, 4 high. I like that you can put this in 2-wheel drive high. And then you've got your mirror controls to the side as well, storage in the middle. Now let's talk about some Easter eggs, some things that are kind of cool. All right, I'm gonna start with the Bronco just because I'm familiar with it. You got a lot of these little accessory things. It'll say max load, 150 pounds. Accessory ready right up there, there's a connection. Accessory ready right here. I like this little area here. If you can see, it's kind of bright in the sun, but this says 1967, 69, 71, and 72. I believe these were years that the Bronco was in the Baja 1000. I want to confirm, but I know there's significance around some of that. It says established 1966, like so it says Bronco there. We go down the sides, you'll see lots of little things. This says accessory ready right here. And this rubber material is kind of cool. You could replace it if it gets a lot of rock rash and stuff. Here's another thing that's kind of cool. You pop the lid, shows a 1969 Bronco here, 2019, and then the 2022 Bronco. And then this is a capless construction. You can run 87 octane, which is kind of nice. Lots of little spots that say accessory ready. You can put accessories here, right there. There's accessory points up here, it also mentions. As I mentioned, you can take the steps off the side. Now let's find some Easter eggs on the Jeep, and this is where I feel like they're known for it. I love the 392. That's sweet. Tro rated badge, very nice. I always like the little Jeep climbing this, which is pretty cool. I believe this is the antenna. I wish Ford would get rid of the antenna, but they're dead set on running that thing. It just looks nicer without it. You can pull, both of these are made for off-road. You can pull the side panels off, which is kind of nice. We look at some Easter eggs on the inside. We're gonna find a lot of cool ones like right here. I like this, just some of the little stitching and covering across the dash. Looks really nice. All right, let's compare payload capacity in the Wrangler Rubicon. 850 pounds of payload. Let's compare that to the Bronco Raptor, 1,059. So you pick up about 200 pounds of payload carrying capacity. All right, so who are these things for? Well, in my opinion, I think the Bronco Raptor is probably more primarily for the off-roaders, the off-road enthusiast that's probably doing more high-speed trails that might get into the mud, might lightly get into the rock some, but generally this is gonna be a little softer ride day-to-day, bigger tires, softer suspension, more suspension travel. And the other big thing is this is a longer wheelbase too. So it's surprising if we look right here, bumper to bumper, okay? Now, let's look at the overall length. Man, it's a big difference. It looks like it's, I'm gonna say 4 to 6 inches longer. You can kind of see where the spare wheel is at. I'll confirm that, I'll put that down below. But this is a total different animal. I mean, you look at the suspension in the rear, and you got 5-link rear suspension. Here's another cool little thing. Check out that differential cover, it says R Raptor, pretty neat, I like that. What I like about the Bronco Raptor is you can run 87 octane in this. You don't have to run premium. I like that this is gonna get you a little better fuel economy. This is bigger inside. There's more legroom, there's more headroom, there's just more interior space. I like that. But what I wish it had was the V8. I think that's awesome. The legacy of the Wrangler is where I think the Wrangler is just, man, this thing's got a lot of history. Not that the Bronco doesn't, but the Rubicon specifically has been around since what, 2004 with the TJ. And this thing is just an awesome off-roading vehicle. So who is this for? This is for somebody that wants the fastest off-road gas SUV made. I mean, what is faster? I guess you could have said TRX and Raptor R, but I'm saying SUV wise, this is the fastest. It's gonna not even be really close. There's so much more power, and it's just awesome. It sounds amazing, and it's a simple V8, but it's really for the guy that's doing rock crawling. You know, it's not gonna be as capable as the Bronco Raptor in a high-speed environment. But what's nice is, being this is smaller, being this is narrower, you're going to be able to get in tighter stuff off-road. Even in a 2-track scenario, I think this is going to be a lot better. Being this is solid front axle versus independent front axle, this, I gotta believe this is probably a heavier duty front axle assembly for just more abuse in the rocks. And I believe you can run 37s on this without much effort, with the right back spacing, even off-road, which is nice. Skid plating is very similar. This is a really, really special vehicle. You're not gonna be able to get one of these with a V8 here soon. This is gonna be getting canceled, unfortunately, and it'll probably be replaced by a Hurricane format is what I'm guessing. So if you're looking for that super unique off-roader with one of the last V8s, man, it's hard to beat. One of the downsides I would have to say is you're not gonna get as good a deal on the Rubicon 392 as you can a Bronco Raptor right now. Bronco Raptors, man, there's been huge discounts on these things the past like 6 months, especially right now. There's huge discounts on these things. So if you start comparing, even if MSRP to MSRP is similar, I bet this would still be $10,000 to $15,000 less expensive than this. But do you want a V8? Do you want the old school awesome nature of the Rubicon? Do you want a little more nimble vehicle? It all depends on what you're after. I'd be perfectly happy with either of these, and I didn't think I would be as stoked about this, the Rubicon 392, and then I heard it fire up. Wow. Hey, I hope you enjoy this video. If you want me to make more content on these vehicles, let me know. Leave some comments down below. There's going to be a part 2 in this video, drive and ride review. Feel free to like and subscribe. Turn those notifications on too. Thanks for watching.